Can you guys hear me? Yes. Thank you. I have to use this little mic because my brain fog is kicking my butt so far. So I set up a bunch of notes, and I'm really excited to present this today. This means a lot to me. I'm only 22, but it's really my life's work. Poetry is medicine. We're using creative care in chronic illnesses. Before I get into introductions, let me tell you why I think this is important. Poetry is medicine. It's all about using storytelling, performance, and real-life honesty to rethink what health looks like. This space isn't about just telling our stories, it's about transforming them into vehicles for healing and connection. And if you were in the session before this, take this as a way to kind of process that grief, because that's definitely what poetry was to me. Who am I? Your favorite IBD girly if you see me on social media. I started off with being like the cutest ostomate you know, and then it was like, psych, you're getting a J pouch. So I was like, well, what's something that's a little bit more universal? So my name is Kaylaa. I'm a Crohn's disease warrior. I'm a writer, poet, author. I'm an NYU Tisch student. I'm studying dramatic writing at Tisch, and I'm a creative. I say that because I truly believe that in any form other than drawing, I cannot draw to save my life, I will find some way to create and get my vision across. I'm all about turning hard moments into healing stories. At the heart of everything I do is a mission to make space for underrepresented voices. Whether it's through writing, media, or advocacy, I believe storytelling is one of the most powerful tools we have. And literally when I say in any kind of way in high school, I did business club in order to platform more Black-owned businesses, and I started doing freelance with that. I was the editor-in-chief of my school newspaper, and being a very liberal Black girl in rural conservative area was very hard, especially in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement and being chronically ill amid COVID when people wanted to go back into schools. I truly believe just in making our voices heard, and again, storytelling is a great way to just induce that empathy, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later. A little bit of background with poetry. I've always journaled. My first serious journal was this severely water damaged One Direction journal. And I used to just take it around with me at school, and it was so serious that people knew that we're not gonna touch Kaylaa's book. I was in one of those gifted education classes, so there's 15 of us, and we're 6, 7, same people you're growing up with, so they knew how serious it was. But I believe I wrote my first poem in middle school. If anybody knows what Wattpad is, you know what Wattpad? Yeah, I was kind of Wattpad famous in middle school. You will never find that profile now. But that was the first time I did it, and ironically, it was because I had a crush, and somebody that one of my closest friends at the time, they were better friends with this person, and I was like, I don't stand a chance. So I took their names, and I used to go down the baby registries and the meanings of names. So I turned them into flowers or trees or something, and I wrote a poem about it. It was super cringe, but that was the first time I really feel like I was trying to tell my story, but in a way that let me kind of get out what I was feeling. But poetry initially came through me through music. You cannot tell me that Lauryn Hill isn't a poet. That's somebody that her music changed my life. Listening to artists like Nina Simone. I kind of grew up getting the aftermath of the Tumblr era. So a lot of those artists that kind of blew up, like Halsey, 1975, The Weeknd was even on Tumblr. A lot of them started just posting their writing. If you're just a kid reading that back, I really wasn't on social media. It looks like poetry. And it saved my life throughout my Crohn's disease journey, honestly, and it gave me the space to advocate and spread awareness. Oh, and then these pictures are just some concerts that I go to. I love going to concerts. I do a series on my TikTok and Instagram. So the first one is Halsey, the second one is Billie Eilish. The Beaches was this indie Canadian band. The fourth one is Olivia Rodrigo and Chappell Roan. I've seen Chappell Roan twice. That's my little claim to fame. 1975, and then recently I saw Tyler, the Creator, and his Chromacopia tour. So I do that a lot. And my IBD journey, I was initially diagnosed in May of 2020 with ulcerative colitis. I started going through J-pouch surgeries after like a month-long stay in the hospital. Christmas in the hospital, almost New Year's in the hospital, and they were like, well, this medication, there's nothing else left. We need to literally save your life. So it was like, hey, we'll try the J-pouch since you're young and we don't want you to have an ostomy. You seem like a good candidate if we can kind of get that nasty intestine out of your body. So I started J-pouch surgeries in January of 2022. I had 3 surgeries, supposedly. It was supposed to just be 3. And then I had an emergency surgery due to surgical complications. I had a revision surgery because of what they found out the issue was, which was like a fistula whole situation. We don't have time to get into that today. And then towards the end of 2023, my diagnosis was updated to Crohn's disease, which they kind of suspected from the start, but they were like, we really won't know until we put the J-pouch in and it doesn't work. So Crohn's disease, and I made the decision to just get the J-pouch taken out and get the Barbie butt surgery. So in May of 2025, I got my Barbie butt surgery. I told my surgeon, I was like, I see chaperone in 1 week. If we can push this back to after this concert, I'll get the surgery, because I kind of felt that at that point, the point of me getting a J-pouch was kind of like the idea of, hey, surgery is going to solve your problems. You wouldn't need medication anymore. You kind of have this whole life. You'll go to the bathroom a lot because you can't hold it a long time. But if I was going to see a life where I was constantly still in the hospital, constantly still needing infusions, I didn't want it anymore. So literally, I got my surgery in May, and by July, I was at Equity last year. So it was almost like, yeah. I had an open wound when I was at Equity, but I wasn't saying anything. I was just kind of sitting down and just watching everything, because I'm that kind of person who still wants to be in the room even if I'm not participating. So that's a little bit about me. Why is poetry medicine? I love this quote from Poetry and the Art of Medicine. Like the physician, the poet tries to grasp, then to control the reality of the human predicament. For so long, I never considered myself like a traditional STEM person, even though I did the advanced classes, was ahead in math, science. I was like, as soon as I get out of this school, I'm going to school for the arts. I don't got to take a math class. It's never happening again. And I have so many STEMmy friends who are constantly telling me about their research. Some of them are also IBD patients. And I always love listening to it. I love being around it, but I'm like, I do not want to do it myself. And I think it came from a place of insecurity. I felt like these fields were dominated by numbers, experiments, research. You have the bonus of working with patients if you're lucky. But to me, I didn't want to go through the constant cycle of putting so much pressure on myself, especially after I got sick. I told myself, whatever I do, I just want to be happy. I hope I make money. I don't want to be poor, but I just want to be happy. And I didn't see myself doing that in a very traditional STEM field, even though I basically had the credentials to do so. But somewhere between coming back, I took 2 semesters of medical leave. So coming back from medical leave, I took a medical ethics class through the School of Engineering at NYU. And I was formally introduced to narrative medicine and how it correlated to disability studies, addiction, and chronic illness. Narrative medicine centers storytelling in health, and in return implicates empathy in treatment. So basically, we really hear the patients, what they think. I know for me, and just coming from a department that worked really closely with their narrative medicine, my doctor sometimes will come in and ask me, hey, what am I watching on TV? What movies am I really into right now? She saw my favorite band on SNL, and she told me, hey, I watched them because I remember you really talking about them in your last appointment. And to me, I felt more seen than when I had a surgery work or going to a follow-up and I had gained weight. So with more humanities being taught in medical school courses, the bridge between creative therapies and medicinal therapies is getting stronger. When you think about it, both poets and physicians interpret the human experience. Through the course I previously mentioned, I was introduced to the concept of illness narratives, which we'll talk more about later. But in the work that I do, I try to lead with dismantling capitalism because a lot of these ideals are inherently racist. Ableist, racist too, but ableist. Care work cannot be self-help. It cannot support a Western capitalistic pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. There are some days where I couldn't get out of bed. The boots were in the closet, closed, maybe in the box. I could have possibly bought the boots because online shopping when you're sick and you just think, hey, when I get better, I'm gonna put these boots on and I'm gonna wear them. I wasn't thinking about those boots. So I deeply related to that as some person who was always so deep into academia and thought that was the only way I was going to be like the first person in my family to go to college, the first person in my family to make six figures, to be able to, hey, my little siblings call me, can I get this pair of shoes? Of course you can. So I'm still unpacking that. It would be an absolute lie to tell you like I am so anti-capitalist. I don't think Black capitalism will solve anything because I'm constantly going back and forth as a person who is just a Black woman in America. But that's a whole tangent I can go on. If you want to talk about that more later, let me know. So where's the balance? How do we get people to understand that yes, I'm great, this medication is working, but I still feel numb? What's the unifier between these varying communities? And there's a lot of them. There's trauma, there's grief, but in my opinion, one of the most universal unifiers is pain. Raise your hand if you've ever felt pain. Pain that you've needed to go to the hospital. Pain that you've needed something stronger than over-the-counter meds. So you guys kind of understand what I'm trying to say. The absence of the fear of the treatment of pain does not discriminate among biological disease, the effects of war, the results of trauma, the sequence of poverty, and the results of mental illness or natural disasters. So how do we tell stories of our pain and illness journeys and everything that surrounds it? It's simpler than you think, but first we have to do a little bit of review. Raise your hand if you've ever seen this in an English class. Characters, settings, conflict, plot, climax, resolution. When we're dissecting stories, we put them on the little plot map and Shakespeare, all of those things. But I think we don't really realize that as everyday humans, almost every day, especially if you're going through a chronic illness journey, all of this happens within the span of the day and you wake up and you do it all over again. So how can this be applied to your illness journey? Poetry. It creates emotional proximity between the patient and the clinician. Poetry is not just words, it's access, agency, and autonomy. And now I could have taken the presentation from this point and gave you a bunch of research studies. And if you came to my session last year, I was very, very passionate about that because I feel like a lot of times when you tell people, hey, I'm a creative and I'm using this in this super medical degree, PhD atmosphere, they kind of dismiss you. But I was reading an article once and somebody said, everybody kind of diminishes art as like a career path, but there's not one person that really doesn't digest a form of art in their everyday life. So we're gonna get into dissecting a little bit of the poetry that I've written. For the sake of time, we can't read all of them, but I always start with Pediatric Floor. Pediatric Floor was the first poem I ever wrote about being sick. I woke up the first day of my senior year and I couldn't get out of bed. I tried to eat a couple of crackers. I can't eat crackers to this day. I tried to eat a couple of crackers to take my meds and I was in so much pain, my body started to shake and I threw up. I was on the toilet pooping and throwing up at the same time. And I ended up staying in the hospital for a week. So that was my first long-term hospital stay due to IBD. And I was, again, how do I process this? Who do I talk to? I was in therapy, but I felt like my therapist really didn't understand chronic illness. So I wrote. I took in everything that I saw around me. In this poem, I talk about, I have it right in front of me. I talk about the white ceilings of the hospital, the big rainy kind of, it's fall in Virginia, so it's either like hot, humid, it rains sometimes, and just seeing that big dirty window that they don't clean at all. So there's always a great view. You can barely see out of it. And thankful for my mom and her being there beside me. The nurses coming in and out of the hospital room because I wasn't used to that atmosphere, day shift nurses, night shift nurses. But the thing that kind of gets me the most, especially if you were in the session before this, is the last stanza. My thoughts are a battlefield. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about what it'd be like if I was dead. If I just died, easier on my family, easier on me, I'd be free. And that was the beginning of my IBD journey. And things only got worse from then. So just imagining all the processing that I needed to do, being in therapy, doing all the things, checking the list off, doing all the things that people would say, hey, if you're feeling this way, get therapy. Hey, if you're this way, try to get out of the house. And still feeling like I didn't have enough to process other than writing. The next poem, we're kind of taking, it has everything and nothing to do with being chronically ill, to be completely honest. I wrote this poem about the amount of gratitude and grace and understanding I give to everybody that I love. Oh, they're just having a bad day. Oh, they just needed a hug. Oh, they're just going through a really hard time right now. And if I just thought about them a little bit more, I would understand why they're like this. But I couldn't do that for myself at all. If I couldn't do something one day because I was in pain or brain fog, there used to be a time where I used to memorize all this stuff. I wouldn't have gave myself notes to get through anything. So my therapist again asking me like, how come you can give everybody so much grace and just talk through everything and, just open your arms and your heart to everybody else, but when it comes to yourself, you can't do that. And I was like, I don't know. I can't tell you. So To Be Loved by Me was, I say, one of my first real big girl poems. I was like, oh, I'm going through adult stuff now, even though I'm still relying on my mom very heavily still in this point. And now we're gonna get into the last one that we're gonna talk about today, which is a misdiagnosis. My mom always says this poem title is a little bit misleading because they always told you could have possibly had Crohn's. They just couldn't really find it in your small intestine. So that's a long thing. I talk about my mom a lot because we are extremely close. Even in those concert pictures I showed at the beginning, she's usually there with me and she dresses a theme. I make her the playlist of the order of which the artist is gonna sing the songs and she listens to them. So I love her. And this poem just details the amount of kind of sucking it up and masking you do even in doctor's appointments, even when I feel like I have a great relationship with these providers. Again, the last stanza is really when I kind of just be like, okay, I'm done writing. I can't do this anymore. So I'm hearing, okay, you have Crohn's disease and we're gonna take out your J pouch, so you're probably gonna need a Barbie butt surgery. All of this kind of going on. And I just smiled and said, thank you so much for your help. I'll see you in February. When I should have screamed, why do you keep ruining my life? Whew. It never gets easier to read them, but you do feel a little bit prouder to know you got through it and it's just not your active moment. So now it's time for y'all to write. I shared a little bit of what I like to do, but we are gonna do this process that I do when I feel like I'm blocked, which is writing to my body. Poetry can be a powerful, practical, and accessible tool to combat loneliness directly, and poetry can provide a new avenue for healing. So what do you want your body to know right now? What do you need it to say to you? For me, it's more so like, girl, I know I shouldn't have been pushing that heavy bag through the airport. I know my wrist is sore right now, and I'm sorry, but when I get home, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to take a Tylenol PM, and I'm just going to go to sleep. So I'm going to give y'all like 1 to 2-ish minutes, and we're just going to let your brain flow. It doesn't have to be anything super put together. Literally just directly right now, what would you say to your body if your body just came out, stood in front of you and was like, okay, so what, now what? I'm timing y'all 1 more minute. And y'all can finish wrapping up, and I'm going to introduce the group discussion. So one thing I hate about traditional writing prompts is that it's always like, imagine yourself on an island and you are surrounded by, well, I'm not on an island, and I probably can't even get to the island in my brain, let alone physically right now. So let's be a little bit more realistic with what you want from me and your goals for me right now. So I started doing this just on my own. In addition to this, I would always do this tapping thing when things got too overwhelming in the hospital, when my doctors came around. Again, music a lot. I use a lot of music to help me just process and get through things. And when I think about it more and more, if you were in the session before, we kind of talked about EDMR therapy, and I kind of started that a little bit with my therapist. And I realized that I've always kind of used music for processing, even before I got sick. So it's very nice to know that even with music, even with writing, this stuff was around pre-IBD, and it still continues to like give to me to this day. But for those who dig, I see some of you guys got stuff on your notepad. So what does it feel like to write with no barriers? Anybody? Go ahead.
So I know when I started, like at first, I just like, I don't know, I just started writing, and then I remembered it was a poetry session, so I started rhyming, but like it made me smile.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. Anybody else?
It made me a little sad to think about what you would write to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and To Be Loved by Me initially didn't even start off as a poem. I was just journaling, and I was like, I feel like I give so much, and I don't know how to even begin to ask to get it back, you know? When I read that poem to myself still, by myself, I cry. My first poetry book, which we're gonna talk about, I don't read it. I don't open it, I don't read it. I may pull from it to do a presentation like this, but I don't read it because it's too much. So I fully resonate with that. Anybody else? Does anybody want to share? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll share.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a poet, I'm gonna give a disclaimer, but I don't have what you have.
That's fine.
Just supporting you. However, you saying to talk to my body made me think this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for what I put you through.
Mm-hmm.
Taking care of others has made me sometimes neglect you.
Mm-hmm.
Please forgive me for all that I've done. More and more each day I feel like I need to take care of you because we are one. I can't do all that I do without you. So before I do anything else, I want to just thank you promise to at least try more and more to take better care of you because
I love that. Thank you. Let's give her some snaps. Give her some snaps. Everybody ever seen Love Jones? Give her some snaps. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love that. It brought me back to a piece that I wrote one day, and I do a lot of social media work. I love doing advocacy stuff for Koji, the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. But I was so fed up, and I wrote, I don't want to be special, exceptional, anything. If I could just be normal, healthy, and happy right now, that would be fine with me. I don't need all the extra stuff. It's cool, but I feel like it's not doing anything for me on the inside right now. So thank you again. Now we're gonna get more into the application. So what if, of course, writing is cool, but what if I don't wanna write poetry? It's not my thing, I don't like it. And again, most of my friends are STEMmies, I get it. They do not want to do anything. They'll read my stuff, they'll support me, but they're like, yeah, this is not for me. That's fine. That's fine. Poetry gives us the language and tools to connect to our feelings, which directly correlates to the empathy we're able to give ourselves and others. Whether you're a doctor, patient, advocate, caregiver, etc., you can benefit from poetry even if it's on a personal level. And I would just say for me, people have always told me I've been fairly articulate, but even with trying to work with something so complex as IBD and first being diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, but then having Crohn's that isn't presenting in your small intestine. I don't have the language for that. Some doctors don't even have the language for that. So by writing through it first and processing it on my own, it without a doubt helped me communicate to my doctors. And even days where I got choked up and I was crying so much and I couldn't communicate at all, having something to be able to give to my mom and be like, hey, this is how I feel. Sometimes it was even symptoms when I'm writing to my body, I'm feeling this pain in my gut that comes when I eat this or when I don't do this. Being able to give that to somebody that can, again, advocate and communicate for me was very, very helpful. And I would be disingenuous if I didn't talk about my social media at all. So you guys will get the QR codes in a little bit, but poetry is the foundation of my storytelling, but the majority of my content isn't writing or poetry focused at all. You will not even notice it until I kind of say, hey, this is what I do, now go back and listen to my videos or something like that. I really focus on reclaiming illness narratives, fostering emotional connection and community, and education through vulnerability and lived experience. Relatability, genuineness, and passion are the reasons I hope people stick around because they feel seen and heard. A couple of slides ago, I also mentioned illness narratives, but we're gonna go back and really delve into what they are. So it's a genre wherein an illness and its effect on the patient's life are told as an autobiographical or biographical account. I'll be waiting on yours. This doesn't mean a book. Goodness knows we don't need another memoir. We really don't. That's another tangent that we can go on. But even in advocacy on a legislative level, I believe they actually set this, quoting it at AFTCC this year. We lead with our stories aren't unique. And that kind of helps policymakers see that, yes, I'm going through it and I'm here as a representative, but there are so many other people going through the same exact thing I'm going through. And when you're writing, of course, as a person, I want people to buy my book. I want you to read it. If you think I'm unique, that's cool. But when just writing for myself and just that healing nature of it, think about that. Maybe I'm not unique and maybe the world isn't all bad just for me right now, but what do I really want to get out of writing to myself in this moment? So what am I up to? We're closing out, guys. I'm working on my second book. These are the QR codes. So you can follow me on social media right there. And my first book, All the Things I Never Said, is still available. My second book is a poetic illness narrative. So that's why I really, really love illness narratives, because even with writing and being so sick, I was like, there's no way I could formulate an actual prose esque version of what I'm going through right now. So poetry was still a way for me to communicate. This is everything that I've been through, all of my surgeries, all the mishaps, and here it is. I used to do signed copies of my book. If you guys end up buying one and you want me to sign it, just reach out to me on Instagram. I can get that done for you. And the second thing is, earlier this year, I launched Chronically the Illest, my media club. I will say it is Gen Z focused more, but my mom, who is a millennial, bless her heart, she's a Gemini too, she loves it. I have her read the stuff. Sometimes I'll like recount everything that we're like watching or reading or listening to. I love like first listen rankings of albums, if anybody watches those. Love those. And I would love to have you. We're working on like different things like watch parties, and everything is virtual right now because I still wanted to be in that component where if you're sick and you're going through something, you can still join, because traditional book clubs, sometimes you read so many books, you go so fast, and I'm like, okay, I have doctor's appointments, maybe surgeries, we can't do this. So thank you. I want to say thank you to my mom, who's watching still probably, my friends, my family, my supporters online. I initially turned to TikTok because I was like, there's no way I could talk to people that know me about what I'm going through. So let me talk into the void, and then maybe something will change. And then I really want to thank my professor, she does not like going by doctor, but I kind of shortened it, Dr. Mel. She is a medical anthropologist, medical editor, artist, writer at New York University Tanning School of Engineering, but she's also an MS warrior, and she kicks butt. Every semester, I'm always looking for a way to get back into one of her courses. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. This was amazing. If anyone has any questions, I'll take them. And if anyone is interested in like the actual research component, because I have it, we can talk about it. But if you guys want to read that yourselves, I can always pass along those links to y'all. Thank you. Thank y'all. That was so fun. I was nervous.